What's up, guys? Hope everyone is doing well. In this video, I'm going to be going over some updates for Bitcoin. But the first thing I want to go over here is this 6-hour chart. So far, really not too much more to say. In the last 12 hours, Bitcoin has seen a swing up to a new local high, around 68.5 thousand. If we look here down here at the RSI again, still seeing sustained breakout. So far, the price, as you can see, has been moving upwards. At this point, set 4 or 5, depending upon how you look at it, local tops since breaking this median of this larger descending channel pattern that we see on here. And as the price has been moving upwards, having an upwards tilt, the RSI is ever so slightly tilted towards the downside, but it's borderline sideways, which could be showing at some point that Bitcoin will see a more sustained retracement. As I said in the last video, I still think anywhere down to 60,000 approximately could be retested before Bitcoin continues to go higher, if it'll even do so. I'm also eyeing right here in this green dotted uptrend, this more short-term uptrend that we've seen since around 16th, around 65k approximately, which really also denotes these two major vector control zones, this upper one and this lower one right here. This 2-day chart is wanted to simply show the broad uptrend range that Bitcoin has been in since November 2022 at around 16,000, with this purple ascending zone, as we can see, this double bottom back here at the all-time low, at least, well, not necessarily for the prior bear market, for the all-time low. And then March 10th, bounce in the same region, June 14th, and then this red region, the only time it's been met was with the bottom that Bitcoin is setting August, September, leading in October, then into November of last year as Bitcoin was breaking around $32,000 approximately. Then in initializing this most recent uptrend right here, the Bitcoin's seen also with the fourth or fifth, depending upon how you look at it, time. January 23rd, seeing a bounce here. So far, Bitcoin came out of that, has seen a local bottom set here. We've seen so far a nice move towards the upside. So far, this upside move has been around approximately 28%. So far, we've seen 5 to 6 green daily candles in a row. It depends upon whether or not you want to count this very small one, but 5 of them at least have shown quite a decent amount of volume. The one vector volume candle that's on here goes all the way down around 58.5, also generally just supports around 60,000, as I was saying, although definitely still room for Bitcoin to definitely get rejected where it currently sits, given that it lines up with this region right here, which is really the only place that Bitcoin is going to have to really work through and before it comes back above and begins to close candles above around on 71.3k. So if it does get rejected here, or let's say, Bitcoin comes up, does something like this, and then comes back down to this red zone and tests somewhere around broadly, it's going to be looking around 50 to around 53,000 approximately, which, again, range I've been mentioning for quite some time. Here, this 2-day chart, really this is the main focus of this video. It is a kind of I think the bigger, as I mentioned in a post recently, the bigger picture of all of these temporal patterns that I've been pointing out in prior videos on various different forms of daily charts and also weekly to higher weekly charts as well, where the main pattern is going to start where I have these numbers 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, where we see the 1, Bitcoin is bottoming out. 2 is the local low set and the intermediate consolidation, retracement, correction before this final upswing is impulse in price in this overall uptrend, which is denoted by each of these black boxes. Now, where the first one was 100%, 72 bars, second one 196%, 93 bars, and then this last one being somewhere around, I think assuming this pattern continues to play out, somewhere around 300% each time, as you can see, 100% to 200% to 300% approximately for each of these, increasing by 100% each time. 72 bars or 143 days. In terms of bar length, 21 bars was increased, then brought it to 185. So we're seeing a 42 day increase, and we do the same thing, adding 21 bars, roughly 42 days. It takes it all the way out to where the next peak will be, the after the second impulse of each of these impulses, where we see this first one, second one, puts it somewhere around mid-February of next year, 2025, somewhere around approximately 213, 214,000, which is a little bit later than the recent updates I've given. To kind of backtrack a little bit, I was looking more so when Bitcoin was entering and like halfway roughly through the second impulse right here. I was aiming more towards around August, September, maybe roughly, the Bitcoin would top out. Then, as I have been saying more recently, with this, the length of this sideways action, slightly downwards action, Bitcoin seen from around halfway into March until right now, currently the current time, a few months, due to the length of this. Clearly, obviously, at this point, I mean, it totally could still happen. Bitcoin could just go on an absolutely massive parabolic run to somewhere like broadly 150, 250K, as I've been saying, by around roughly August or September. Totally could happen, but I don't think that's what's most likely at this point, like I've been saying. I'd say no earlier than September, but definitely with an emphasis on October, November, December, January, February, of March. So basically Q4 2024 leading into Q1 of 2025 is broadly when I think Bitcoin's going to top out, and I'm going to actually go over something very interesting on that in a later chart. But to finish explaining this clearly, and obviously you could see the time pattern, the percentage pattern. We see where 2 is always lining up with the intermediate correction or consolidation. Overall, you could characterize these uptrends or these impulses in these uptrends as forming an ABC-like structure. This looks like a lightning bolt towards the upside here. And then clearly, as I have this one laid out here, something very similar happening. And what's also interesting to note is that as I have detailed out up here, this left pattern, this right pattern is this left one's the first one, second one is this second one. Each of these times you can see this megaphone-like structure where we see the support ascending and the resistance ascending and the support descending. Same thing here, both of these. And they all happen to, each of these, the first peaks, where we see, like, for example, this first peak here, around right here for the second impulse, happened basically right at the same time, right in the middle of each of these durations of these uptrends, which is why I have this one over here to the right model like this, where basically we'll see like an ABC-like impulse with some type of megaphone-like structure as the intermediate correction before the final leg of the impulse, overall uptrend, or the impulse from B to C, if you look at it in that way. And then, as I've gone over in past videos, there's similarities in the time between each of these as well. For example, if we look at the uptrend of this and the sideways correction right here, from 1 to 1, basically 147 bars. And then from 1 to 1 right here, we see 151 bars. Clearly in the same range, same ballpark. And then this next one right here is only 115 bars, according to the way that the time has increased from 72 to 93 to 114. Somewhere towards around 150 would put it out towards around May of next year. There is also some validity for that as well. I mean, it could top out. The upcoming bull market all-time high could top out something roughly similar to how it did last time around. A lot of the times, the all-time highs for Bitcoin's, in terms of its cyclical progression, do tend to top out around more towards like the end of years or sometime within like the first roughly 4 months or so, 5 months or so into the beginning of a year, within the first half. But at this point, a lot of the times these temporal patterns don't typically play out that well, especially in the sense that I'm using them. But nonetheless, I do find the percentage pattern to be quite interesting. Also, the fact that it further validates the range just that I've been going over. Really, the staple of my all-time high projections, my best guess that I can throw at the on the table is just approximately 200,000, sometime before the end of the first half of 2025, to be very broad. Lastly is the RSI trend that is further validates some sort of, structure here, where basically what is actually seen before I get to the RSI, the final thing is really we're seeing this as kind of like a 5-stage bull market. Bitcoin has seen this plenty of times in the past. It saw it during the last one, where we see 3 uptrends. In this case, each of these uptrends, assuming this final one plays out somewhere towards at least like 180, 230K approximately. Each of these impulses, 1, 2, and 3, are becoming larger each and every single time when the corrections are roughly the same. Although this current or most recent correction has been the most brutal one so far. It's been around 28%. The other ones have been more, so around like 22, 21, 22, 23%. But lastly, if you look here at the RSI, you can see right here, and right here, each of the ones in the pattern have all come below the 1.272 of the Fibonacci tool that I use on here for the RSI, which is just taken from the highest RSI in history for Bitcoin on the index chart down to the lowest. And we can see each of these times, whenever the uptrend begins, goes into that sideways action, then begins a new uptrend, then repeats so far twice. Each and every single time, the RSI is below the 1.272, and it's also, for the first 2 times at least, went just a little bit below the orange range, whereas this last one, it's got quite, it was just shy, but above it, which I don't think that's a big deal at the end of the day. What's also interesting to note is once you see the RSI right here cross above this yellow, the 1.414, this is when the uptrend was, there was no more like building up of the price, making some sort of local lows, even if it was building up from a low to a higher low to a higher low, such as it did back here from September to October of last year. Every single time at the 1 in the stage of this pattern, the RSI on top of that is above the 1.414. This has denoted that there is no more kind of build-up action, no more local lows to be set, and the price is about to go into the next uptrend and break the prior local highs. And once the RSI further gets back above the 1.618, that'll just further confirm this as well. As I have detailed out on here, there could be definitely one more, small retracement down around 60, 58K or so before it goes back up. But all in all, this seems to be showing that Bitcoin has set its local low around 53.2K and is going to be, if not already, best case scenario, already entering and has already begun the next uptrend, and what I think is going to be the final uptrend overall for the bull market. Also, if you look at the bear market Fibonacci retracement, 1.618 sits at 173K, 1.786 sits at around 224K. So this type of retracement on top of this retracement that I have right here, which is, those of you familiar see this quite often, the bear market retracements in terms of my phase cycle or epic theory, which I've gone over more detailed in past videos. But if you look here at this 4-day chart so far, recently this 4-day candle that opened up a few days ago, closed the prior 4-day candle with 1.618. Great to see. Price is now back above the upper band, the fast, I believe it's the fast DMA, if not it's the slow DMA of the DMA, 350 DMA band indicator. This right here, roughly, this upper white line, white DMA, has historically held as support, although there might be some minor deviations here and there. Ultimately, though, it's always been held. So far, it seems to be held. As I mentioned in the last video, a very, very, I think, pivotal indicator, a bullish indicator that's been accurate, specifically within the context of bull markets. Every time you see these turquoise dots, as you can see here, especially below the Bollinger Bands, as it happened most recently, this every single time just about marks precisely the local low before a new uptrend begins. The RSI is very close to crossing the median of the Bollinger Bands and flipping definitively bullish in the context of this 4-day chart. You can see once it happened right here in October, halfway October 2023, this uptrend began. Same thing right here as well. This uptrend began here. Now this other 4-day chart, this factors into the temporal, a very interesting temporal analysis and pattern that I want to talk about. Now, these are the Fibonacci time tools. In my years of looking at assets and trying to form some sort of pattern in a market or a specific asset, I've never really been able to get these to work well and properly. I've never been able to find a repeatable pattern. Although there's a very interesting one here that I found for Bitcoin. Now, if you look here at this leftmost one, each of these time tools are going to be drawn from a bear market absolute low. For example, here, November 17th, 2011. And then I drew, so from 0 to 1, where the 1's lying on the very first candle that closed above the prior all-time high. And you can see here that what we're looking at right here, that I've segmented off this entire bear market, double bottom, bull run, looks like an ABCD pattern. This is phase 1 of cycle 2, as I've said many times. You can see the all-time high was with a rough respect to the 1.618. To go to the next one, looking right here, this entire bear market to the left and bull market to the right, you can see this is phase 2 of cycle 2. And you can see again, all-time low for the bear market, all the way to the first candle close above prior all-time high. You can see that this all-time high happened closer to the 1.5. Still roughly, you know, obviously it's just about a month or so, you said, well, 3 to 4 months drawn away from the 1.618 of this prior one. But if we look at the next one, this right here, would be categorized as the phase 1 of cycle 3, so same phase that we saw prior in cycle 2, but it's a new cycle, it's going to last longer, so on and so forth. See the double bottom. We see this first upswing as we saw in that lightning bolt or ABCD pattern in the phase 1 of cycle 2. Again, from bear market low to first candle closing above all-time high, we see the 69K landed right at the 1.5. So this is basically the same as this one back here. And just both of those two are just a little bit earlier, a few months earlier than what we saw at the 1.618 for phase 1 of cycle 2 and that all-time high. Now, if we do apply this to the current bear market, again, bear market low to the first candle that closed above prior candle close to the all-time high back here, and we can see that broadly, again, going back to every single one of these, you can see the all-time high is always happening sometime after the 1.414, but before the 1.786. You can see it right here, and we see it for right here as well. And then, like I said, generally the 1.5 to the 1.618 is where each of these all-time highs are kind of creating some sort of, I'll just kind of put in an analogy like a gravitational well, like where something also is similar to like a magnet, where we see these assets, specifically Bitcoin, seemingly with the way these Fibonacci time tools are forming some type of pattern, whether or not it's going to be valid in the future in the next 6 months, 6 to 8 months or so. There seems to be some sort of pull for the all-time highs under this criteria towards around the 1.5 to the 1.618. Now, 2 of them were basically at the 1.5 and 1 of them was at the 1.618. So that is going to draw, if we kind of like try to average this out, somewhere towards like maybe a little bit past the midpoint of the 1.5 to 1.618, which is somewhere around very end of November, which again lines up with my broad range that I mentioned earlier. And then I also just extended it out to around February as well because of, like I said, this chart that I went over, and then also I said, I mean, it could potentially extend out to as far as May. Like I said, I think 6 months in the next year would be the absolute latest, just looking at how things are going right now for the bull market to top out, and it definitely could change. It's been, at this point, around roughly 2 times that I've had to update when I think it is going to top out due to the extension of the retracements we're seeing in this bull market compared to this prior bull market, which is cyclically and structurally speaking the same, for those of you familiar with my phase cycle theory and how I view the progression of Bitcoin. But just to quickly sum it up broadly quickly, September 17th specifically to around March 14th of 2025. So September this year to March of 2025 this is the historical, according from bear market low to the first candle that closes above the prior all-time high for Bitcoin's structure progression since phase or cycle 1, 2011, all the way to now. We see this roughly broad range, really like a medium-term range held up for when Bitcoin tops out. Like I said, with an emphasis along 1.5 to 1.618. This weekly chart, this is what I was going over in a few videos ago. For a short period of time on the weekly candle July 1st, the RSI seemed to be finding some support here, and I made a video about that shortly after Bitcoin did end up going a little bit lower, and the RSI, as you can see here, saw this brief dip below, but so far at this point it has broken back above this 2-year what has been support, and it's sitting right at these. You might barely be able to see it, but there's this black resistance from 3 to 5, and then also black resistance right here from 3 to 5, where you can see once the RSI broke above it, similar to what I was going over for this chart in the RSI, you see the same thing here. And I believe we'll also, there's a more likely than not chance Bitcoin will see the same thing here as well, something very similar, as the RSIs also clearly look similar, as I've gone over in the past videos in various different capacities. The time pattern that I've shown here, like I went over from the 1-to-1 on the 2-day chart, where we see 41 bars on this weekly chart, and then basically 0 to 6 for the first one, 41 bars, and then 0 to 6 on the second. The second impulse of this overall bull market was only 3 bars longer, only about 21 bars, or not 21 bars, 21 days longer, really all within the same ballpark, looking very nice nonetheless. And then I do have another type of model here for the way that the price could carry out, seeing generally just some type of ABCD movement in this last impulse or uptrend for the bull market, with this kind of megaphone like ascending resistance, descending support structure in the middle of that. Lastly is if we look here at the current weekly candle, which just opened up not too long ago, it is currently back above the 5 and the 13 EMAs, which is good to see in the short term and overall for a bull market, especially towards the kind of the latter half, second half of the bull market. But also the main thing I want to point out is how this current weekly candle is sitting just shy, just a little bit below the sideways ranges. You can clearly see right here that at around 60, let me get a little bit more precise here, 60, what's the highest? 60, basically 69, approximately 69.3, 69.2 is where the highest candle close has been recently. If Bitcoin can solidify, especially this current weekly candle, especially even with the next one as well, within the next 2-3 weeks or so, I would say, what was it, like 21st of July, I'd say definitely by the end of this month, well, it's the 22nd actually, by the end of this month, I think quite likely we'll see Bitcoin close above that 69.2K approximately. And if so, then I think that will be really the kind of final nail in the coffin. Unless, like I said, now let me paint one final picture here where we see this sideways action right here. We kind of see how this most recent local low dip a little bit below the sideways. Perhaps maybe we're going to see Bitcoin just go up a little bit below the sideways in terms of the highs, and then it gets rejected right back down around 50, 51, 52K. Maybe it even goes lower down around 43, 42K, like I've been saying, which is, I think, if Bitcoin's going to go down any lower, it won't go any lower than that. But as always, that could also change as well. But that was all that I wanted to go over in this video. So as always, I know this is meant to be financial advice. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.